It's very rare in a movie that the ghosts are agents of healing. I found that theme is what's running through the bass line of the movie and makes it kind of beautiful.
Doesn't work.
Hi, Scott.
Hi.
I'm very excited to have the chance to talk with you about this movie because I think it's such a great film, you know. And one of the things that I think is special is how you balance two different scenarios, you know. I was scared when the phone was ringing and Finney turned his back to the door to speak on the phone. It was like, no, don't do that. There's a killer and there are ghosts, you know. But I felt the same displeasure and fear when Gwen was being punished by her dad, you know. They faced domestic violence with his alcoholic dad, you know. So I would like to know, how did you balance these two worlds, you know, because we are talking about kids, so kids are vulnerable, but you balance these two scenarios to make a great film?
I had that kind of domestic violence in my household, you know, that was familiar to me. And I think most of the kids in my neighborhood, that was pretty typical of living in North Denver in 1978. I've never been abducted by a sadistic child killer, so, you know, all that was fiction. But I think that when it comes to child pain, child endangerment, that sort of thing in a movie, it is a balancing act. You have to be very thoughtful about how you do it. I wanted the whipping scene to be really awful, and yet there is a line that you don't want to cross. I picked the house that I picked in because it had that long counter, because I knew that I didn't want to actually see a belt actually connecting with this young girl's physical body, you know? And so all of that happens off camera, and it's more the sound that drives it and her performance that drives it than the actual violence that you see. You see a little bit of it, but not that much. It's sort of often off camera. Things like that make it approach the breaking point of it being too much, but hopefully it doesn't quite cross that line.
Yeah, so obviously everything that Finney goes through is so much for this kid to, you know, handle, but he always has a sister, you know, with him. She always has his back. They always have each other. But, you know, for emotional scenes, I had to really, you know, think about what it'd be like without my family, because I love them so much, and that's definitely where I had to go to, you know, be in those type of scenes.
I am a part-time magician.
Are those black balloons in there?
Would you like to see a magic trick?
Some movies or TV shows try to explain who the killer is, you know, who the villain is. But in this film, we don't need to know his background or why he is kidnapping boys, you know. The lack of information gives us a character that I think it's from one dimension, that it's terrifying because that's all we have. You know, that's interesting because most of the characters that you have played, I think, are very complex and we get a lot of things from them, you know, but now it's different, not only because he's a villain or even the mask, but the lack of information that the audience receive. So I would like to know if that makes sense to you or your take on the character was completely different.
No, I just think what you said is really smart. It's really what I liked about it. Oftentimes I see movies and they seem to waste a lot of time explaining everything. And they lack a point of view. All of us in life, we don't understand everything that's happening around us, and that's what makes it interesting. The movie is told from Mason's point of view. He doesn't know who the grabber is or why he is the way he is or why he has black balloons and why he wears weird masks sometimes and not other times. And it's just, it makes it kind of arresting and exciting not to know. So I thought that was just good writing. It makes you, you know, it's that old expression, it makes you lean forward because you want to know. And if you didn't want to know, then I guess it would be bad writing. But I found it very interesting, and Scott and I would daydream about what this guy's backstory was and where he comes from and why all this has happened. But ultimately, it doesn't matter. Something has happened, and this person is broken and become an agent of evil in the world. Like, it's just evil manifest through this toxic human being. And that's what I had to play. And why and how it happened is another movie. It's not Mason's movie.
I had a dream about it.
What happened in your dream?
He was taken.
By a man with black balloons.
Yes.
We never released those details.
Madeline, I read in an interview with Scott that the production was delayed because the director refused to recast your role.
Yeah.
You were working in another production, but they waited for you. That's a big compliment for you as an actress. And I actually think that your character should be a role model for all of us. You know, she's fearless and she's funny and she's great. So what did you like the most about Gwen? What did you learn from her?
Well, first of all, I feel so honored to get to play Gwen because she is such a role model and such a powerful character. But also about Scott moving the movie, yeah, it interfered with this show that I was filming. It interfered with that schedule. And so I will always be grateful for Scott because I think I would have started crying if I didn't get to do this movie because it means so much, and getting to meet Mason and work with Mason and working with Jeremy and everyone, it was so amazing. And things that I learned from Gwen, probably to never give up, and you always have someone to rely on.
Yeah.
I'll scratch your face. This face?
I thought some details in the movie were part of the story, you know, to help audience understand the scene and the dynamics, you know, to get in the mood. For example, how the siblings learn to be quiet and in constant silence, you know, to avoid their dad's anger. And it was great when I found out that these details were there to support the story in a big way, you know. I don't want to give a spoiler, you know, but when Finney uses his ability to be in silence, that scene, it's
for sure, yeah. And you know, there's a parallel between their home and where Finney's being held. I mean, the dad and Finney have the same weapon. They both have a leather belt, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, those things are not accidental. It is a story about childhood trauma and the resilience of childhood and the resilience of children. And I think that being able to create the relationship between those two things is you know, speaks to the larger, I think, takeaway from the movie, which is, you know, everybody has trauma from their childhood. It's going to define you in either how it stunts you or how it forces you to reckon with and grow.
Hello? Don't hang up. Who are you?
At the end of the movie, I thought that the black phone, it's like a metaphor for what it means to grow up, you know, how hard and painful and cruel and violent is the way to adulthood, you know, because there is a constant threat for children and teens. Real threats like a sadistic killer, abusive parents, bullies, but also a guy with a gun in a school. So violence is it's around the corner all the time.
Yeah, I feel completely the same. It's just a metaphor for how difficult it is to wake up and be a grown-up. And when you realize that the people older than you are not looking after you. And the beautiful thing about the movie is that the brother and sister decide to take agency in their own life and not look at themselves as a victim and take care of themselves and take care of each other. And that it's even kind of beautiful that these other victims are the ones who help them. It's very rare in a movie that the ghosts are agents of healing, you know, because it's like these young people are deciding not to be victims anymore, but to help somebody else. And I found that theme is what's running through the baseline of the movie and makes it kind of beautiful.
Yeah, I love when the supernatural elements are not the antagonist, and this movie is like the perfect.
I love it too. I think that's what I loved about the movie. The antagonist is us, real people.
Yeah.
The supernatural elements are actually healing.
There's a combination lock on the inside of the storm door.
What's the combination?
I carved it in the wall.
I love when the supernatural element isn't the antagonist, you know, in the story. And considering your filmography, The Black Phone is different in that way. You know, it's terrifying. It's still very terrifying. But the phone and the voice of the victims are consequences of the real danger, you know. It reminds me to The Devil's Backbone by Guillermo del Toro, you know, these kids with a big thread. So do you think that your movies, this is very special and different considering your filmography?
Oh yeah, for sure. It's definitely the most emotional movie I've made. It's the most hopeful movie I've made, even though it's so scary and suspenseful. And I did an interview with the New York Times yesterday and talked about how The Devil's Backbone was the biggest influence of any other film on this movie. And I'm friends with Guillermo, so he knows that also.
So there wasn't too much like movies like this one. This one's definitely some different. So I didn't watch very many movies, but I did watch this one film, 400 Blows, I think it was. It was a 1950s film that I loved so much. It showed childhood trauma, and I really watched that to get in character for Finney. That helped a lot.
Doesn't work. Not since I was a kid.
Thank you very much for your time and for your characters. This is such a great movie, so thank you very much.
I'm so glad you liked it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. Great, thank you.